Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Angles, and as always, welcome to our viewers on onespotmedia.com. So joining us to talk about the parliamentary opposition at this juncture in its history, we have with us Professor Brian Meeks. He's joining us from Brown University in the United States. Now, Professor Meeks had conducted an appraisal of the PNP after its 2007 loss. We have with us as well Maxine Henry Wilson. She's a former General Secretary of the party. Sondre Roden is with us. He's a youth advocate and head delegate at the Model UN at the UWA University of the West Indies, joining us to give us a youth perspective, since we hear how important the youth were in this election. And Dexter Martin joining us as well, General Secretary of the PNP-YO. Before we hear from any of them, though, we went out onto the streets and asked members of the public why they thought the PNP lost.
As a leader, them not unite, them fight against one another. As a leader.
Them don't do them work. And JP do them work.
They're not united. And I think there's too much power struggle going on between them right now.
The PNP make a vital error. It was Peter Bunting was the leader for the PNP. The PNP does stand a better chance. Peter Phillips, to my opinion, is a sick man. And he don't have the zeal and the utilization that Peter Bunting have. It's the first mistake that they make. And they don't go on the ground one-to-one with the people and bring in the people.
They weren't doing enough groundwork to make sure they had the people, and they didn't use social media, because social media was supposed to be used in this time. It's not like long ago. So, it's a mixture of things. So it's not just one thing.
All right. Now, a gentleman in that vox pop referred to Peter Phillips as being ill. I don't know if he said, in his opinion, if in fact he's referring to the fact that Dr. Phillips had been diagnosed with cancer. Let me just say that Dr. Phillips has said on several occasions publicly that he is now cancer-free. All right, so thanks so much to all our guests for joining us. Dexter Martin, I'm actually going to start off with you, because the PNP-YO, what was it now? About over a year ago, last year, April, there was a letter leaked or recommendations that the YO had made about the party. And at a time like this, with the party having lost right now, looking like 48-14, that could still change a little bit depending on magisterial recounts. But I have to refer to a couple of the points the YO made. 21 points in all, just to mention a couple of them, that the organization in all constituencies should be done, that a social audit should be done for those that the PNP has held for 30 unbroken years to see if needs were being met, that a national message needed to be created that's appealing, practical and sustainable. You made mention of communications. You made mention of the officer corps as being part of the problem, saying they don't listen to anybody except themselves and shut down other views. You said that the secretariat needed to be strengthened, and you spoke of the older members of the party who said they've been leading every election since 1976 and said they need to be put out to grass. So, we heard that the party was meeting with all of you. We heard that things are going to be happening. As you sit here today, looking at the devastating defeat your party suffered, do you think the YO's voice and the concerns you raised in April 2019 were sufficiently responded to?
No, they weren't. And we have to take some blame for that we were not as strident as we ought to have been.
This letter did really strident, though. These 21 points were very strident. Is it that you make them shut you up after this?
Yes, that's the point. That we met with them, they rubbished some of the ideas, they sought to explain some of them, and then we did nothing about it. We weren't we should have continued that advocacy. And so we have to take that blame as well, that we did not continue the advocacy, because when you look at the points we made, any assessment, any credible assessment of why we lost, you will see some of this coming out. Remember, when we made these points to the party, it was coming out of the loss in East Portland, and we saw the same situations. I went to several constituencies. The same things I was hearing in East Portland is the same things I was hearing in these constituencies. We turned a blind eye to some of these things. We relied on history, we relied on the love of people for the party, and we paid the price.
So
dearly.
let me go back to why you didn't continue to push, though, because at one point in this whole 21-point document, you had said that if certain people weren't replaced, the YO would mount a lobby and get everybody out of office who wasn't performing. So is it that you were persuaded that you were wrong, or you were persuaded that you were speaking out of line?
No, we weren't persuaded that we were wrong nor out of line. And in fact,
so why not drop the ball?
Some of the advocacy continued on the inside, not necessarily on the external front. And then a few months after that, there was a leadership challenge. Some young people found some hope in that. After the dust settled, you had some people who gave up. You have some people who decided that, okay, the delegates have spoken, we're going to stick with what we are doing. And it was then time to battle down, because we realized that a general election was less than a year away. So it didn't, well, yes, a year away. So it didn't feel like it made sense at the time to push after a leadership challenge, even though for some people it didn't go the way they wanted.
So
it
do you
to.
feel,
but I think it was a mistake on our part.
Do you feel validated now, though? Do you feel that the concerns were well founded and should have been heeded?
Definitely. And this time around, we can send a notice that we will not be deterred. We are going to build the coalition that we need to let our voices be heard once and for all.
All right, I'll soon come back and ask a little bit more about what that means, but let me bring in Mrs. Henry Wilson here. As a former General Secretary, Maxine Henry Wilson, tell me what you're seeing when you look at your party right now.
I'm one of those people that Dexter spoke about, and he said that the 1976...
The current team of elderly comrades who have led every campaign since 76.
Exactly. So I played a role in one area, one constituency. I really was not generally involved in the campaign. So I'm really speaking almost from somebody who is sitting and looking on. Okay. And I've spoken with several comrades, and several comrades call me. First of all, I think that the issue really has to do with a party that really needs to reinvent itself. It's not the first. We have been through processes like this, but I think the combination of that together with the issues of leadership, right? But the truth of the matter is that the PNP was not organized on the ground. That is the bottom line. And there may be reasons for that. It may be financial, it may be internal tensions, whatever it may be. But the fact of the matter is that this time around, the JLP out-organized us using some of the same methods that we had used. For example, closer to the election, I asked the question, do we have teams of people going out who are going to do the final audit of the constituencies? That was a staple when we ran early elections. People who had no interest in a constituency, going and doing just an objective assessment, are we ready for elections? It may have been done, but when I asked the question, I really didn't get a response. As I said, I worked really in one constituency, Central St. Mary, which is traditionally a strong PNP constituency. The people were just not biting. The PNP people were not biting. They came and you could see it in their eyes, something that Mr. Patterson taught us to do, look in their eyes. You could see it in their eyes that they're still strong comrades, but somehow they didn't have that kind of passion. And so we couldn't even get a proper canvass done. A constituency where in 2002, their canvass results fell short by 59 in terms of what the outcome was. So it's not that they didn't know.
Explain for us exactly what is a canvas.
Okay, so the structure of the People's National Party is that you have groups, and that's supposed to be your ground game. And in a well-organized constituency, your group members are constantly in touch with the people who are in their community. So when the time comes for election, it really is just a kind of, what are you doing? You're just tightening up. But you know the people in your community, and you go and find out, are they really going to come and vote? Who they're going to vote for? You also do things like if somebody is ill, are they going to need help? All kinds of things. Are they going to need transportation? So you have a list of people for whom you are responsible as a group member, who you are also a worker. And on election day, you go and you get those people. That is the canvas where you actually identify who is going to vote. And you can say, well, at 10 o'clock, I must have 20 people, at 11 o'clock, etc. And you can bring it right down to the point where you know how many people you're going to get to come out to vote. That's a canvas.
Okay.
Going to your voters list.
And you're saying that wasn't effectively done this time around?
Well, I can't speak for everywhere, but I can speak for where I worked, and at least 3 other constituencies I knew about. It was very difficult to get a canvas. And in most cases, you didn't get a canvas. So certainly for the constituency with which I was involved, what really happened was we decided to rely on the 2011 figures. And that was kind of illusory in many respects, but we had to go back to something that has been established. I want to make one other point, and I think we need to look at the trend. If you look at the trend PD by PD, you will see that over the last probably, certainly since 2002, the PNP, the strong PNP polling divisions, there has been a systematic and steady decline in PNP votes, while the JLP have gone the opposite direction. So this thing was a while in coming.
All right. I'm at the break, so let's go to the break. We'll come back with our guests. And remember, our hashtag, it's TVJ All Angles. We're looking at the People's National Party. As you know, newspaper articles used to have this headline, "Wither the PNP." So wither the PNP. Where is it going? What's going to be happening? Stay tuned. We'll soon come.